Good morning. This is Ryan Hillard with Thrive Mortgage, NMLS 1226157. And here in our real estate live discussions that we do every Friday on Facebook. So thanks for everybody that continues to tune in for these and watches them and shares them and asks questions and all that type of fun stuff. Hey, Amelie. And today we have Emily. Okay, so number one question, Fletcher or Walker?
Fletcher. Walker's my given middle name.
Perfect. Hey, Lisa. Okay, so Emily Fletcher.
My friends to be watching this.
I know, you should tell your friends to be watching this.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of conversations that go a lot of different ways. We talk about real estate. We talk about a lot of things. Andre, what's up? We talk about a lot of different things, and we're definitely going to cover real estate today because that's what brought us together. That's one of the things that brought us together. I think we would have probably found each other, you know, through other things, you know, fashion and whiskey.
Fashion and whiskey.
Amen.
It's what brings us together.
Yeah, we're starting a new blog called Fashion and Whiskey. Watch for it here. But you know, real estate, fashion, whiskey, food, all these things we're going to start talking about. But before we really get into any of that, let's just get to know a little bit about Emily. So tell us about you. Tell us how you got into real estate. You know, what was your background before real estate that kind of led you to this path?
Yep, absolutely. So thanks everybody for being here on your Friday morning. So I'm Emily Fletcher. I'm from Colorado. I grew up down in the Monument, Colorado Springs area. So if any of you guys are from CO Springs, woo woo. And so, I mean, I spent most of my life there. My family's still down there, and I grew up in a construction family. So my grandparents were in construction. My parents were in construction. I actually had a construction company. Yeah, I know it's an interesting story. We don't have to get into it now, but yeah, I was like, I'm an entrepreneur. I am gonna start
When did you have that?
I started it when I was 19.
Okay.
So yeah, and one thing led to another. My partner took that business actually, and then I actually was in the investment, like the securities industry.
Right.
So I had my FINRA 7 and 66. Any investors out there? Woo woo. And so I did that for a handful of years in different roles, working directly with clients and like sales management roles. And I really love that. Like it kind of brought things full circle.
Yeah. And that's not a little role, right? Like that's, you know, like just for people
that is a big deal.
For people that don't know, it's not like, and not to discount anyone that's doing the investment side, but you were working with big accounts.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yes.
So,
yes.
Maybe before we really go too much farther, talk a little bit about that. Like, what were some of the bigger accounts that you were working with? What were some of the things that you were doing with them? You know, how were you helping them?
Yeah. So my favorite time at that company, I was working with T. Rowe Price. And my favorite time there, I was working with we call them like high net worth individual clients. Yep. So these weren't businesses; these were individuals. And I mean, you know, the accounts definitely range. Like I think the biggest one that I advised in and traded in was $24 million. Okay. Like $24 million accumulated in your own individual accounts. It's pretty crazy, right? So, but what I loved about that was I just had a lot of time talking to these people. Most of them were retired. A lot of them were entrepreneurs themselves, and they had the most interesting stories of how they got to where they did. Like these were not people working just typical jobs. Yeah. They had really cool stories about how they built their lives, where they moved to. They wanted to tell you about their family and their grandkids. But like I soaked that up. Yeah. You know, it was about a lot more than just the transaction. Totally. And so I worked with people nationally and internationally. And I just that was one of my favorite things. But again, I loved how client facing it was. You're helping people make really big decisions with large amounts of money. And it has an impact on their lives, right? It's not just money. It's like, oh, this is for my kids to go to college, or like, you know,
James.
This is hi James. Yeah. So I mean, even though it was a transaction, that represents a lot of hard work. Yep. And that represents people's dreams.
Were there things when you were having these conversations with these people that like common threads through what they did? Like one of the books on my bookshelf back here is Tools of Titans from Tim Ferriss. And what he does in that book is he goes through all these real high achievers and talks and looks for common threads of what they do, whether it's things like morning routines or or gratitude or
Interesting.
giving back and things like that. Have you given any consideration of like what were some of the things from the people that you were working with in that capacity that helped make them, maybe didn't even help make them become that successful,
Right.
but was an underlying thing that you saw?
You know, the people that I think really stuck with me, like their stories and my conversations with them, I would say that they were people who they weren't concerned about kind of living out the status quo.
Yeah.
They weren't.
Yeah.
And they were at the end of their lives. So it was like they were looking back on what they accomplished and their impact on the world and also on their families.
Mm-hmm.
And those were like the two big things. Did they do this really cool stuff that they wanted to? And then also what did they build in terms of family or social life?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them, like the things that they want to talk about again, it was traveling and it was family and touching on the cool things they created, but it was never about like, oh, I got this promotion and this.
Right.
It was just what cool things did I build that were representative of me.
Legacy type stuff.
So concise.
There we go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think that's really important. I've just interestingly, we've had a lot of conversations around that type of thing lately where, you know, instead of like nobody's going to do it just for the money. Like you can't get somebody to do something just for the money. There has to be something greater than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them, it might be a legacy type of an item or whatever that might be. So that's why I asked.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question.
Yeah. But I mean, how did that prepare you to get into real estate when you made the shift, you know, working with very high net worth individuals, you know, all these, you know, what's funny is when you look at that, hey, Steph, how are you? Stephanie Schock.
Hi, Steph.
Future guest
Good
on the
morning.
show. She'll be coming in a couple of weeks. But so what's funny, before I got into the residential lending side, I worked doing commercial real estate finance for about 15 years. I originated a $1 billion debt portfolio that I managed as well. And what's weird though is that you just start seeing numbers very differently.
Yes.
Like zeros and commas, just they don't mean anything, right?
Yes.
And so like, did that have any play in like when you're starting getting over just like you I guess you quit focusing on the number of it or on the price of the home and you just go back to the service.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think since we're kind of both comparing like our past lives, so, you know, working with high net worth clients was like one of my roles at that company. I was there for 5 years and I did, you know, a handful of different things. But, you know, and I mean, I worked with people that, you know, were calling to like take out the $1,500 that they had in their account, you know? So totally. It was across the board, but there's complete commonality. And I think what it is like you said, you kind of stop just looking at the number and it really has more to do with people work really hard for that money. Yep. Right? People work really hard for that money. They make sacrifices. They've, you know, made whatever decisions they have to get there. And that's a piece of pride, no matter what is in your account, right? And so we're talking about houses, no matter what you're buying, no matter what you're selling, like it's a huge source of pride. It's been a big part of your identity and you've worked really hard to get it, no matter what it is, you've worked really hard to get that. And I think that that's part of where anybody who's in any service industry, like you have to be really cognizant of what's tied into that. It's never a transaction. It is not just dollars. And kind of with the home piece, again, you know, yes, maybe you might have some slightly different marketing angles for a multi-million-dollar home than a $500,000 home, right? Yeah. But in reality, again, it's people selling a home. It's people buying that home. It's their story. You know, they're still packing up their kids, like, you know, their kids' toys to move out to wherever they're going. It's all the same story, right? Yep. And so it's looking more at the commonality of it. And everybody wants to be treated really well. And for you to really understand where they're coming from and where they're going. Because that's one part of their story, an important part, but one part. Yeah. No, it's like that old saying of like an overnight success 5 years in the making, right? Like they've done a lot of sacrifice and like you don't see the nights that they really wanted to go out, but they had to stay in because, you know, going out for that $50 meal or whatever it even if you take your family of 4 to Applebee's, like you're not getting out of there cheap. I know, right? And so like, you know, like that's money that we need to like just be saving up, right? We're going to stay at home and eat mac and cheese. Or the blood, sweat and tears. Like if you have anybody who say is moving out of a home and has done any renovations,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was them actually like
Totally.
going in and doing the work or whether they hired it. I mean, again, just there's a lot tied into there, you know?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. So then,
Yep.
how'd you get into real estate?
Okay, so let's backtrack. So how I got into real estate. I moved to Denver. So I moved to Denver
Welcome.
and thank you. The commute was absolutely killing me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the blessing of working with a good agent to find our home for their
Mhm.
block. And she was like, come work with me. Don't drive, come work with me.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So I quit my job. A month later, I had my license.
Yep.
Yeah. Kaplan. Yeah. And just studied, got my license and jumped in. So that was kind of the story. And we're coming up on, I'm going to start my 4th year. Oh my God. I'm going to start my 4th year here in just a couple months.
Yeah. So just to be
Time goes
clear,
so fast.
like you didn't just move. I said welcome to Denver, kind of kiddingly. You didn't just move to Denver like today. You've been here for 4 years, and again from Colorado Springs. So just to eliminate any confusion for people there, but that's crazy. 4 years.
I know.
That's happened. Lots happened in 4 years.
A lot's happened in 4 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So what's happened in 4 years?
Oh my gosh, what has happened?
Yeah.
What are we
Now
talking
let's
about?
now let's not just say a lot's happened. Let's actually
I
define
have
what's
no
happened.
hair now. That
Okay,
happened.
that's a great story. And
That
so
happened.
JoJo's on. So hi Johanna.
Hi, Jojo.
And Johanna was with you when you.
Uh-huh. Yes, that
So
happened.
tell us about that story quickly,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's a cool story.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been passionate about charities and causes. You know, back in my old life in the Springs, like I was involved in different capacities, and one of the causes that actually is St. Baldrick's. So when I was working at T. Rowe Price, I volunteered, and there were always people who get their head shaved. And I was like, what is this? All these people and these women are walking around the office without their hair.
Mhm.
And so I first learned about St. Baldrick's probably about 7 years ago. In the meantime, my husband's nephew actually was diagnosed with cancer. So he's in remission now, and he's, he was diagnosed a few years ago, but it just definitely, it's one thing to have it, arm's length. It's another thing for it to be closer. And then
Totally.
obviously if it's within, like if it's your child,
Yeah.
that's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
So, just kind of brought it more, back to my awareness of this particular cause, St. Baldrick's, which raises money for children's cancer research.
Mhm.
And the notable event of the year is you shave your head. So
Just go for it.
go for it.
And raise money to do it.
You raise money to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'll say everybody out there who contributed to my campaign, or is thinking about doing it in the future, like, thank you. It's awesome. Go shave your heads. Thank you for helping me raise money. But yeah, so earlier this year, I think it was March or February, go to Stoney's downtown. Thank you, Stoney's, also for always being a place where you let us do this. But you get on a stage and they shave your head in front of a crowd of people. It's
But
crazy.
then they have multiple, almost barber chairs or whatever in there.
They
So
have a
there's a
lot.
lot of people
They
doing
raised
this.
over 100,000 just
Crazy.
at that event, and there are tons of events all over the place and all over the country. So, yeah, but
Great.
that's the head shaving story.
Yeah. Are you going to do it again next year?
I don't know.
And how long was your hair before you shaved it?
Well, okay, so about a year ago, my hair was I don't know, somewhere here, as long as brown, and I kind of progressively got shorter, and then it, I think my hair was here when I shaved
Then
it.
it got a lot
so
shorter.
It got a lot shorter. It's
Yeah.
probably gonna stay short, so hopefully you guys.
Well, it
Well,
works.
I mean, I like it, so.
Yeah. Like she
Mhm.
said, you rocked the shaved head.
Someone's trying to convince me to shave my eyebrows next year.
That's weird.
Is that weird? I don't know. Would you guys donate $500 an eyebrow or something? I don't know. I'm putting a price on my eyebrows, but
Yeah.
we'll
Well,
follow up on that next
anyway,
year.
back to real estate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about shaving eyebrows. And of course, a fellow short hair admirer, Lisa.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Lisa.
So-
No, don't shave my
no
eyebrows.
eyebrow shaving is what the audience is saying. So, that's all right.
It's okay.
So let's get back to real estate for a second. In 4 years, I said kind of what's happened in 4 years. You
Yeah.
moved to, from one team to another. Where are you now?
Yeah, so I'm with the New Era Group. It's under Your Castle Real Estate. So my office is in Jefferson Park. I love
Yeah.
Jefferson Park, and I work
Jefferson
with.
Park, too.
It's kind of a big team, and it's just a cool group of people. You
Yep.
know, when you walk in there, just be aware of somebody's dog is probably going to come up to greet you. So.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's a great group. I mean, I think that was one of the things that I really love about Your Castle especially, is they do, how do I put this? Lon and Charles love to nerd out about numbers.
They are so stats driven.
They are.
And
they are.
so Jorge Gonzalez is on here. Jorge is an agent at Your Castle as well.
Hey, Jorge.
Not with New
Era,
right? But I mean, Jorge, there's so much information.
Yes.
You almost have to just be like, wait, let's pump the brakes.
Right.
What do I need to digest through this that I need to relay to my people?
Yeah, absolutely. But for anybody who's into the stats and kind of slicing it every possible way, man, they are always great about cooking up that data, and then we get the high points. But that's something that I personally really love.
Yeah.
It's a local group, so it's across the Front Range, and really people all over Colorado. But I like that it's local. And then again, my group at New Era, they have my heart. They're awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I know that wasn't an easy decision for you to make, but I mean,
Right.
knowing you and having had conversations with you since you've been there, you definitely feel at home. So,
Yep.
So that's always a good feeling. How has that helped you with buyers and sellers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So I came over from Berkshire Hathaway, which was also an awesome group, Innovative Real Estate, before they franchised. Again, such good people, awesome people, slightly different resources,
Yep.
I'd say. But again, I love the stats-driven piece of it.
Mhm.
Not everybody's into that. But again, coming from, I think, the investment background where you're sending people prospectuses that are this thick, or a lot of individuals that they just really want to understand where the market is at. And so that's one piece that I'd say is kind of a differentiator with working with both buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
It's hey guys, let's look at the charts. Let's
I mean,
look at things look
the market doesn't lie.
The market doesn't lie.
So the market gets it right. And so someone can say, I want A, B, or C, but you can say you can back it up essentially.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I like about this job is that, I always say I'm a very linear thinker. You're a much more abstract thinker than I am.
You're a waffle.
I'm a waffle?
Yeah, have you guys heard this term?
No.
Waffle pancake, yeah.
Like an Eggo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah. So what's funny is that before I eat pancakes, just to prove my point, before I eat pancakes, I will cut them all up, and then I'll turn the plate and I'll cut them all up. So I have all my bites all ready to go before I can start eating.
Oh,
I can't
yes.
just dig in and take one bite. So I am a waffle.
I love where these conversations go. I'm loving this.
Right? All part of the fun of real estate. Who knew?
Who knew?
But
Right.
with this, on our side, more times than not, if somebody doesn't qualify for something, we have pretty clear guidelines that we can point to and say, you don't qualify because of A, B, or C.
Right.
You don't qualify because your debt to income ratio is too high, your credit's too low, or whatever the case might be. You don't always get that, but that helps you get that, right? You can't always say, well, this house, the market is telling you what this house should be, right? And so you're able to use the statistics that you're getting from New Era and Your Castle to guide your your clients down that path to what the right house may be. Does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, my kind of, what I'll add to that is it is about numbers, but selling and buying is really an emotional decision.
Totally.
And so even though there is a science to both of our crafts, and a science to people buying or selling homes, there's also an art to it, and definitely that the emotional triggers that get set, right? So that's the other piece, I think, where both of us are aware of, and how you work with your clients, and how we kind of help coach them to whatever part of the process they're in, whatever side they're on, to kind of know what to expect through that process. Because a lot of times, even though we'll have stats to say, all right, so showing numbers, we're at this on average, and this month they're at this, so that could impact our pricing strategy, whatever. But ultimately, we know, it takes somebody falling in love with something to really jump, right?
Yep. Hey, Michael, how are you? Getting a little love from Georgetown, Texas, down there.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Okay, so we'll skip over some of the other parts of that, but let's move into a little bit of a conversation on branding.
Oh, yes, let's talk about branding.
So last week, we had Brian Nacklis on. Brian is our Chief Strategy Officer at Thrive Mortgage. we just went through our own really big rebranding. We were Georgetown Mortgage, and now we're Thrive Mortgage. And so everybody in the company is really excited about that and really doing a big push to put our name out in the marketplace. And we've done things on the backs of guys like Michael, guys like James Duncan that was on, Brian that was here, lots and lots of people internally that really behind the scenes get all this in place. And there's a reason that they wanted to have a brand for us. One of the reasons is Georgetown was a little bit too geographically centered. And so as we continue to expand and grow, we don't want everybody just thinking Georgetown, Texas. We want to be thinking, more nationally, regionally, nationally, right? And so the brand helps us get there. You have your own brand. Anybody that knows you obviously knows that, if you go back to the people that you were talking about and helping, they're themselves.
Yeah.
You're definitely not afraid to be yourself.
Right.
And part of that brand, which I think is an awesome brand, is food and shelter.
This is true.
Right?
Yeah.
So drink your coffee. Tell us about food and shelter.
All right. So I'll say again, this is, I think creating some kind of brand and identity was a big part of my move earlier this year. And everybody has their own brand, right?
Yep.
Whether you actually have a website and a logo, you have your own brand. It's how you show up every single day.
Yep.
One of the really fun things about the industry that we are in is, I used to wear suits every day, pantyhose, suits and pantyhose, right? You wouldn't even believe it to look at me now. So it's really fun getting to have that flair of personal expression in our jobs because of the line of work we're in. So this spring, though, I definitely took it a step further. And I created, it's kind of a concept, called Food and Shelter. So I was I love food. I love eating. And I grew up, food was a really big part of growing up. I had a family, my family had a restaurant and did a lot of preserving and gardening, and just food was a really big part of my identity. Food and shelter, right? So I was getting into some food editing, food blogging. I love attending food events. And so I don't know, at one point I was just having a conversation with my husband and I was like, my life is food and shelter. And then I was like, oh my gosh, my life is food and shelter. Yeah. So, go on my website, so foodandshelterdenver.com, and I've kind of melded two of my passions.
Yep.
So it's everything from, again, the active listings to neighborhood information to restaurant recommendations to
within the neighborhoods.
Yeah. So I kind of created this little bit of a concept that melds those things, and it's a little more of I call it I consider myself to be a lifestyle realtor.
Yeah.
And it's a lifestyle real estate it's real estate through a lifestyle lens.
Yeah.
Because that's it's really how we live, right?
Absolutely.
That's how we live, how we choose our homes. What are you around? What can I walk to? It's not just about how many beds and baths are there.
Absolutely.
It's not. It's how we live our lives.
Yeah.
So that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, they just talked about, I'm telling you, I'm going to come out with a class. I said this on the way over here. We were talking.
Stuff.
I know.
I did say pantyhose.
So this is going to sound cheesy, but one of my guilty pleasures is $1 Million Listing on Bravo. Right? I've watched all 7 seasons.
You were just telling me about this.
But this is what Ryan Serhant just did last night. He was way too many. He was just talking about this last night. He was trying to sell a property in Times Square. Nobody wanted to be there because it's Times Square, but he was trying to say embrace the neighborhood. Don't just think about the building, embrace the neighborhood. So I'm gonna do a class called all the 10 things that I've learned about real estate from watching 7 seasons of $1 Million Listing. It's gonna be great.
We talked about fashion and whiskey. There is a person for every fashion look. There's a person for every whiskey. There's a person for every home, right? Yep. One man's trash is another man's treasure, right? What neighborhood somebody's oh gosh, another person's gonna be like, oh my god, this is awesome. So you have to help people understand what it's gonna be like to live there.
So what about being a food blogger? Part of that, I don't know if it's going so far as to say it's a food blogger, but you're writing kind of reviews and I don't know if we'll go so far as to say critiques, but you're giving feedback and commentary on the restaurants. And you're one of those people that takes pictures of the food and I've been out with you and we've done that. It's hold on.
I know.
And so
don't eat that fry yet.
You know what? Another sidebar. I I think the hardest thing about being a food blogger
Mhm.
would be to remember to stop and take a picture of the food
Oh, yeah.
before you eat it.
Yeah.
Because anytime I think about it, every Friday I go out for burgers and bourbon. And I'll think about taking the picture of the food when I have like the last bite left.
Mhm.
So maybe we'll start a food blog called
Yes.
The Last French Fry.
Do it. That's what,
Um,
yes.
Like, right? Like that'll
Yes.
just be like, here's a picture of my empty plate. It
Yep.
was really delicious.
Yeah, embrace like the demolition of that gorgeous, wonderful food.
That's right. Yeah. But going back to you, because it's not about me, it's about you.
Well, it is about you.
It's about conversation. What about, the food blogging and kind of deconstructing the meal
Mhm.
for the reader?
Mhm.
What's that like?
Yeah, I've been doing, like I said, some food editing and food blogging for the Modern Eater this year. And so I'm going to take a slightly different direction,
Okay, sure.
but I would say a lot of what we focus on is, again, like what's hyper local, right?
Mhm.
So not that I don't enjoy food from all over and drinks from all over, but it's more about like what's kind of Colorado proud,
Yeah.
essentially, like what's going on right here, what are people doing to kind of like bring it back to the community. And I actually kind of turn into a storyteller of chefs more than the food, which is interesting. I take pictures of food and I love food. I wouldn't say that I'm a critic by any means, but I actually kind of turn into a storyteller.
Yep.
And so what I found really fascinating about that is, again, it goes back to what we were saying with, when I was in investments. It's all about stories. It is all about people's stories,
Mhm.
how they got there, where they're going, why they're doing what they're doing.
Yep.
So, and along the way, I've had the chance to eat some crazy awesome food. I need to start working out more. But
Amen.
yeah, so I'm trying to remember exactly what you asked about that with the food part of it.
Well, I mean, so
but-
just talk about the chef's end, like even
Yeah,
of
okay.
just, so the food is telling a story, the
It
chef
is.
is telling a story through
Through
their
their food.
food, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
That's their craft.
where are some of the places that you're really liking right now?
I knew that this was coming, and
I know.
I hate answering
Yep.
that question because a lot of people are like, "What's your favorite restaurant?" And
Well,
it kind
that's
of
why-
changes
so I don't,
every week.
I don't ask like, what's your one favorite restaurant?
Yeah,
Like, what are
where am
a
I-
few favorite, or
Where am I
where have
eating
you
right
just been
now?
going lately?
Where have I been going lately?
I mean, okay, so you just got back from Italy. Are you on a big
I
Italy
did.
kick right now?
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah. So, yes, I did. I just got back from Italy, and I'm getting down on like Italian wines,
Mhm.
and I'm in like a pasta making class at my house on
Nice.
Friday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, food. I don't know why I can't answer this question. You know what I've been really into lately? This is not highbrow. Diners.
I love diners.
Oh my gosh, I love
Greasy
diners.
spoon?
Yes, I want to make
Yeah.
a composite of all the greasy spoons in the area. It's like there is nothing better than like Saturday or Sunday when we're not working to just be like, oh man,
Like
no makeup,
the eggs
comfy
taste a little
pants.
bit like bacon grease.
go get some
and,
chicken fried steak. Yeah, so
Yeah.
honestly, my bet lately has been diners.
Like Pete's Kitchen.
So yeah, I live west side, and we've
Okay.
been heading to Golden a lot lately. So I think it's JC's or Casey's. That's awesome. Golden Diner is awesome. Carnation, Danny's Carnation over on Wadsworth. And I guess maybe I've just been liking brunch food as well. But it's like that's again Swift's. Oh man, I love Swift's. Go to Swift's off of Santa Fe. Yeah. So there's, it's just
Check
if
it
you want a different take. We're into brunch, but like sometimes you like champagne and chicken, and sometimes you just really need like,
Is Denver a brunch city?
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
it
funny
is.
because I ask different people that question and I get different answers. Some people are like, no, it's not brunch city at all.
That's interesting.
Because those people are the ones that will say it's an outdoor city. So like it's the weekends are here and I'm going to the mountains,
Mhm.
right? So, or they might say that Denver's a brunch city in the mud season.
Right.
Right. But you're just saying it's a brunch city.
I think it's brunch city.
That's fair.
State my case.
Stamped. Done. Okay. You want to talk about food anymore?
Do we want to talk about food anywhere?
Food as it relates to your brand. Food as it relates to food and shelter.
Mhm.
Some of the different
Yeah.
neighborhoods. Are there some neighborhoods that are kind of up and coming? And is food leading the way in the neighborhood, or is the neighborhood leading the way for food?
So in my personal opinion, this is just kind of how I see a lot of like community development happening, is I think art tends to lead the way. in
Art.
a neighborhood. Art.
Okay.
Yeah, I think art tends to lead the way in a neighborhood. If you see artists moving to a new area, change is happening. So I think that food kind of tends to follow migratory patterns. I think sometimes they're a little bit more ahead of the public, but they're looking at numbers. They know who's moving.
Yeah.
Why do you think people are expanding to Stapleton and this, the Springs? I think the Springs is about to have a lot of people moving, a lot of restaurants expanding to the Springs from Denver. So I think they're definitely watching, but I wouldn't say that they lead the way because ultimately they're not going to go somewhere that they don't have the people to support it.
Yeah.
And kind of with the food thing, I was thinking, even though a lot of what I'm talking about are restaurants and whatnot, again, I kind of grew up like homesteading, for lack of a better term, and that actually led to a big reason of why I live west. Like I live in Lakewood with like a big lot and garden and like preserve and whatnot, because that's a huge passion of mine. I think another piece that you'll probably see crop up more and more with food and shelter is going to be more of the homey aspect of food. So not just the going out and eating, but more like, let's talk about your garden, let's talk about preserving, let's talk about the hominess of your home and the food that you make and the community piece there. I mean, I think a lot of my community, like we do a lot of like family dinners in, family dinners in, and I think that you'll probably see more and more of that because I personally think that community meals are a really important piece.
Well, communities are built
future.
on conversations, and conversations are built around the dinner table, essentially, right?
I'd like to see a trend start of neighborhoods getting together for meals.
Yeah.
So that's the stamp they'll put on
Somebody has to start it.
It's true. It's okay. I'll tell you guys.
And
when
you're
my
not afraid to
backyard
be a
is ready.
trendsetter.
No.
So there's one more.
Okay. Okay. I'll let you guys know. Community meals starting soon.
Done. But one of the things that it's not a but, it's an and. Sorry. Another thing, and I'm gonna totally put you on the spot right now.
Oh God.
Okay. So it's one of the ideas that you've had that you want to do.
Oh, okay. I think I know.
You know where I'm going with this?
I think so. Yeah.
So there's some other guys on here. I think Andre was tuned in. So there's some of us that there's an organization here, and now it's a charitable organization called the Denver Gents. Right. And so it's guys that I have some pictures on my accounts. We wear suits. We like to get
so fancy.
Yeah. We like to get dressed up. Listen, like we said, I love clothes. I love a suit that fits well.
I bonded over this.
I love all those things, and I'm not afraid to admit that. And so, and then a lot of our events now are sponsored by McAllen, but there are members only events that are men only.
Right.
There's other events that are open to anyone, but you're like, I want to be part of that.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Yeah.
So, an idea.
I do have an idea. Yeah. I mean, I guess I've always kind of been in the men's world my whole life. Even in school, it's I'm going to take physics and I'm going to take technology and not art, So, and when I was a sales manager, there's so many, so that part of things, again, thematically, I'm just I'm one of the guys. Come on, guys. Yeah. And so when you were telling me, I think you told me about an event, I was like, oh, can I come? You're like,
sorry.
I was like, what? I want to come drink whiskey. It's not the first men's whiskey drinking group that I've been discouraged from attending. So, so you want me to expand on my idea?
Yeah, I want you to go for it. I'm putting this out there for you right now.
You're holding me accountable to the world.
That's right.
Okay. Yes, I know what you're doing here. So thank you. Actually, it's always really good to have somebody to kick you in the butt.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I've been mulling around kind of different varieties of concepts and bouncing them off of people. I don't know if Steph is still on here. So Steph, my business coach, she's been so instrumental in the food and shelter concept and getting that off the ground. And I keep kind of coming up with ideas and being well, what about this other thing? And I haven't settled. This is still cooking. But yeah, I mean, having a group that again is anybody who identifies as a female and drinking awesome drinks. I mean, I like whiskey, but I like other things too.
Yeah, I mean, it can be
so
cocktail,
drinking
it can be
awesome
whatever
things.
you want, whatever.
Maybe putting on your cool duds. Doesn't matter if they're designer. Put on this cool weird thing you got from the thrift store yesterday. And have a charitable giving piece of it.
Yeah.
Having a charitable giving fund has always been a big goal of mine, and I like to be involved in causes, and I think that's a really important part of again, just their social fabric.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't really know what to say.
So
it's just these elements,
you
guys. What should we do with this?
So now there's conversation around it, right?
So yes, I
That
guess
builds
what
a
I'll say
community.
is if you're watching, and again, if you are, if you identify as a woman, like raise your hand and maybe just throw a comment on here if you think you're interested in it, and there's no better time to start than now, right?
That's right.
No better time to start than now. So raise your hand if you think you want to be involved in this. How's that?
Yeah, that's perfect. And I mean, listen, I won't be there because it'll be women only, those who identify as women.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that I kind of, one of our early conversations on it, we were like, I kind of have this idea of women kind of putting on their heels and looking good, going out, having a nice glass of scotch or whiskey and smoking a
Maybe
cigar.
a cigar.
Right? Maybe not if you're into that.
Yeah.
You're like, I just don't really know if women would really be into that.
Right.
And I'll tell you that I've talked to a lot of women. I've talked to other guys as well that they're like, oh my God, I could tell you 15 women that would be so down for that right now.
Yeah.
Go. So
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's a great idea. But it's also
Thank
built
you.
into a larger conversation that we've had of small scale social groups being the new networking.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we all know, there are like a million Facebook groups out there. I think the group thing has gotten really popular. And I think that we'll see it be a little bit more geographically focused and actually like in person. So we've seen these things, like meetups or again, Facebook groups that do get together. But I think social groups is kind of the next wave of connectivity because we all love technology. I think a lot of adults are social or are digital natives, right? I mean, I'm trying to think of my time frame.
Yeah.
I'm like Oregon Trail generation, so we're in the middle. But so I think that in the age of connectivity, I don't know that we see it as being a conflict as much as like my connections online turn into these social groups and help me find other people who are interested in it and who also are in the area. And so I personally do think that that's going to be a big part of things. Like it's like we're taking chat rooms back off the internet and putting them in physical rooms.
That's right. And how do you have those conversations in person? So you're having progressive conversations instead of just having the same conversation with the same people over and over. And that's one of the things that I'm most thankful for with the Denver Gents is that it's put me in rooms with people that I just wouldn't be in the room with otherwise to have conversations that I wouldn't be having otherwise. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I kind of want to show up like in a fake mustache at one of these events and just see if I'm allowed in the door.
Hey guys. Okay, so we've talked about real estate.
We talked about
We
real
talked
estate.
about food. Talked a little bit about branding. Want to talk about whiskey?
Yeah, I do want to talk about whiskey.
Okay, what do you want to talk about whiskey?
Okay, here's what I really want to talk about with whiskey. And I'll just say, like, I don't know, I grew up in a whiskey drinking household, and so whiskey.
Whiskey. 'Cause why not?
And I recently, travel's a big priority of mine. Right? One of the things that I kind of job craft to is to give myself time to go travel. And thank goodness my husband was like, okay, we'll go.
Okay, yeah.
So my most recent travels, I went to Italy for a few weeks. It was awesome. Tracked down family, ate all the food, drove everywhere, including the Amalfi Coast. That was cool.
Awesome.
But on our way back, we actually had a layover in Dublin. Awesome, right? And I've been to Dublin before. I hadn't been in a few years. Dublin's changed a lot. If anyone is looking to move internationally, Dublin.
Right here.
And so of course I save space not for wine but for whiskey. So here we go. This is my beautiful package. If any of you like to do duty-free shopping, you will recognize this bag. However, what you may or may not recognize is this tape all over it saying it was inspected. Because this sucker went through security 3 times because it took us a lot of legs and unexpected flights to get home. But this whiskey came the whole way. We went through a lot of pain to get this whiskey.
Yeah.
So, do you guys watch unboxings?
I didn't know what an unboxing was,
You guys
so I
know
only had to
unboxings are,
explain
Okay.
what an unboxing
Like sneakers,
was.
shoes, purses on YouTube. Yeah, so people buy things and unbox them.
I do
in front of
unboxing
the
like
public.
I eat. Like it gets in front of me, I just open it up. Food gets in front of me, I just eat it. I don't take pictures, I don't take time.
Nope. I don't know if there's I should have a YouTube channel for unboxing whiskey. That means I need to buy a lot of whiskey. So if anyone wants to sell or buy a home.
So we're
just let me know.
unboxing whiskey right now.
We're unboxing whiskey. So that's what I wanted to do. This has been sitting at my house for like a month. And we are finally going to break these bad boys open.
Let's do it. That's
Okay.
10:45. We can open whiskey.
Why not? So I'm going to put this down here because I think it's going to be crinkly. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this whiskey. Now, I know that Ryan tends to love bourbons.
I do.
I like bourbons. I'd say they are potentially on the, like, my least owned and least drinked side.
I'm not picky.
Yeah, I like Scotch. I like blended. I really do like Irish whiskey. Again, my dad is an Irish whiskey drinker. I got him on Green Spot. I brought Green Spot back a few years ago from Dublin, and he loves it. And a Green Spot drinker. It's great whiskey. So I brought these bad boys home with me. Oh wait,
There you go.
this way.
Yep, that way.
And again, give us a shout if you're a whiskey drinker. So Writer's Tears, and then this Teeling whiskey. That actually was put into a stout cask that had been their whiskey cask. If that makes sense. So they had a cask that they used for their whiskey. Their American oak or whatever.
Yep.
Sent it over to Galloway Brewery, who put a stout in it.
Yep.
After that stout was done, Galloway Brewery sent it back over to, I think Teeling's in Dublin, to Teeling, and then Teeling put whiskey back in it.
Perfect. Because the barrels are used over and over and over and over.
Over and over. So, and then Writer's Tears. So they call this copper pot. If you're an Irish whiskey drinker, you probably know that there are a few different versions of Irish whiskey that make it distinctive. This happens to be a blend of pure pot.
Pure pot.
Yeah, I think technically, like, they don't like using that word in the US, but so pure pot and single malt, single pot and single malt. So, yeah, it's going to be a little fresher, a little more green. It's not all malted. Usually there's a little bit of green in there as well. So, yeah, which one do you want to try?
I just like the name Writer's Tears.
Okay.
So let's go for that one.
Okay, perfect. So,
I love the name.
yeah.
I mean, we were supposed to be talking about real estate, and here we are going to be drinking whiskey. So,
Do you know what?
who
But
cares?
this is life, right? Like, this is what we do. Is let's talk about
This is like
real fun things.
Yeah, this is like no, I'm not going to go out. Okay, I'll go out for one, and then you get home at 4:00 in the morning.
Da, 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 da. You can definitely get Writer's Tears here. I don't know if you can get the Teeling Stout cask here. They told me no, but maybe they're trying to make a sale. It doesn't matter about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, if any of you guys have had these before, please give us a shout and tell us what you think, or if you want to try some. I mean, I don't know. I'm just down for, like, Friday nights, everybody come to New Era Group and sorry, John, and we'll just have some whiskey. So.
And then trickle over to JPP or Jefferson Park Pub or Sarto's to finish on with your Italian kick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll be coming for you, Sartos.
It's just there.
Do you, you were?
Yeah.
Jefferson Park, man. That's
Awesome.
kind of our.
I live in Jefferson Park, so.
Are you good with neat?
Oh yeah. What's the proof on this?
What are we at? Oh, gosh.
40%? No, 80%?
Yeah, 80.
80? Yeah.
It's not bad. Is that,
Yeah, that's,
is that about your typical morning
We're
whiskey
good.
pour?
yeah, that's what I usually put in my coffee.
We're out of control. So is this what we're going to do for, I think that closing whiskey should be this.
Closing whiskeys?
Yeah, us talking in front of the camera like yahoos. And
I don't see why not. We're probably losing
doesn't that
viewership
sound
right
so
now.
good? We might be. I don't know.
That's right.
That's why we save this for the end.
Yeah. I'm
Oh, wow.
gonna get a call. Be like, Ryan, your live was great until you started drinking on air.
These colors are really beautiful. I mean,
It's very like
this.
honey and gold.
Yeah, so you can kind of see, okay, the red dress really does not help. But this one, it's definitely a little bit more like, I would consider it to be like straw. It's almost like appley, pearish straw coloring. And then this definitely is a lot more golden hue to it. I think looking in the bottle is definitely like the really connoisseur way to do this.
Mhm.
So,
Cheers.
cheers. What do you think?
That's really good.
And
Yeah.
maybe you're not just a bourbon drinker.
Maybe I'm not just a bourbon
Not
drinker.
just a
That's really
bourbon
good. Like it's really good.
Yeah. Do you kind of want to come to the girls drinking whiskey thing
Can
now?
I? Yeah. Can I? If you can put on a mustache, I can put on like a skirt or something like that, right?
Yes.
Done.
Yes.
Kelly would probably go to the Kelly Sanders.
Hey,
would probably
Kelly.
go on to the women, women drinking whiskey and hanging.
Mm-hmm. No, let's drink some whiskey. Let's give some money away.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good life, right?
Well,
guys?
and so this just kind of also goes back to one of those things that we were talking about of just, things that people have in common that you can relate to one another about creating that small scale social group, social network. in order to expand and have, additional conversations, because some of the conversation is really going to be about whiskey, but that conversation is going to go in so many directions, maybe because of or in spite of the whiskey, but it's really just creating a common bond and then branching out from there.
And one of the things, like I'll kind of use this platform that I have now to share some thoughts that I've been having. I think that sometimes, like, and I noticed my travels to Italy actually made me think about this. Because we hung out in some communities. Paul's family's originally from this town of 600 people.
Oh wow!
Kind of up so kind of up in close to the French Alps, and it's we play beer pong there. They play American beer pong, but you had people with their kids there. You had women in their 70s, 80s who are heckling the players. There's just this huge expanse because that's the community, right?
Yep.
I think just pontificating on these things when we're in a really large city where Denver's large and it's growing by 35,000 people every year, right? And that's net. So when we have so many options for who we spend our time with, a lot of times it's really easy to hang out with people who are like us. Right.
Yep.
So, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but you definitely do run the risk of getting yourself into an echo chamber. And to me, life is kind of about growth and learning. So the other thing I like when you have a common thread, whiskey. We could go out on the streets and be like, who likes whiskey? And we would probably have a really diverse group of people getting around talking about their lives. They're probably gonna be different ages, different genders, different backgrounds, where they're from. And so I personally also really love that part of social groups. If you can get people together who aren't maybe who you would normally hang out with, I think that there's just a huge opportunity there for social growth and personal growth.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So I think there's always a story. Hey, Anna. I think there's always stories around the common thread, right? And so again, just bringing it back to kind of what led us down this path of social groups, talking about Denver Gents. Our most recent event that we did last Friday was so much fun, and everybody had to bring a record. So we had DJ, there's a guy there, there's DJ Styles.
What did you bring?
So
I'm really curious about this.
Yeah. So everybody brought a record, and then he'd play a little bit of a song from it, and then everybody'd tell the story of it, right? Why did you bring that record? So I brought Led Zeppelin 3.
Okay.
Because
I would be a big fan of that choice.
I love Led Zeppelin. I listen to Led Zeppelin all the time. And Led Zeppelin 3 was really when they started the turning point into making some of their more folky type sounds a little bit more mainstream with they hold up in I can't even pronounce it, Bron-Y-Aur, which Bron-Y-Aur Stomp is one of the best songs on that album. But anyway, they really started turning that corner and paving the way with that for a lot of the people, or they were one of the influences for a lot of the people that are guys that I listen to now, whether it's Jason Isbell that I'm going to see tomorrow night at Red Rocks, or Ryan Adams, or Sturgill Simpson, or Langhorne Slim, and guys like that, right? But my story is not important. It was all of the stories that were important. That people that I brought this record because I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and on Sundays was kind of a very sacred day for us and the family, and and we would sit around listening to this guy talk. We would sit around listening to this album, this person, this singer had this influence on me. And then it was all the conversations that we would go and have one-on-one after that. So the vinyl was the common thread, but it was all the conversations that happened as and of them just telling that one little snippet of their life story that you can now have a conversation about.
That's awesome.
So it was really fun.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So let's start wrapping this up. Let's bring it back to real estate. And I should say too, that for anybody that's out there, like, oh my God, this girl's bringing whiskey on, that's who she is, right? Not afraid to live out loud, but also I don't mistake it for just this totally carefree. We've heard that you used to work with really big money and are very serious with their clients. And so, you get the best of both worlds of someone that is really going to care deeply, likes to have fun, but also, knows what the serious and the impact of all of this is. Yeah. So I just don't want that to be discounted or overshadowed.
Yeah, no, I mean, how do I put this? We're all here to do and be the very important things, right? And I think sometimes just culturally or corporately or whatever, that can get overshadowed by a lot of things you think you should be. And then you don't actually focus on what's important to get done, right? Like we're doers.
Yeah.
We get things done. Then sometimes we drink whiskey.
So
that's what we do.
Let's wrap up a little bit. Any good success stories that you have? Like anything that really sticks out in mind? We've talked about people that have been doing all the work to save up and then you were able to help them, and like anything you want to share there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that this isn't a specific success story, but I've just been thinking last night, I was up at like 2 a.m. looking at people's my buyers' home values now and like what's going on in their neighborhoods, and I was just on a kick. So I was just thinking a lot about how much faith you kind of have to put in your the intrinsic value of you purchasing, right? I'm a big believer in that because I tend to work with people who are primary owners. They're not investors, unless they kind of become an investor if they leave their home. But my point is this: people who really focus on the why of what they're doing. So, you know what, I'm not trying to buy a home just to buy a home. I'm buying a home because, you know, me and my boyfriend are moving in, or I want to move out west and have a garden, and I really want to be putting my, you know, they have a good reason for doing it. And they're kind of willing to step into the unknown and take a little bit of risk. You know, I was just looking again at some of the home values, people who did put faith in the process. Was it always easy? Sometimes it wasn't that hard, actually. Like I have people who got under contract on the first home that they see. In competitive price points. Sometimes it works, right? Have faith in the system. Some people, it took a little bit longer to find the right place. But in the end, now that they've had a little bit of time to get away from that purchase, which felt like, oh man, that's a lot of money, right? It's the biggest purchase that most of us make in our lives. Now that they've had some time to get away from it, they're like, oh my gosh, I am so happy I did that. So I'd say success story wise, I mean, it's just something I was reflecting on. A lot of people who said like, oh man, I'm in a competitive price point. I really want a house though. You know, maybe they felt a little bit stretched, but they just did it. And now they are so happy that they did. So that's not just one success story. But that's what matters, right? Like that's why we do what we do.
Well, and so Anna's watching, and you answered that a little bit similarly to when I asked Anna that question, and she said, you know what, they're all success stories because they're all for the individual. And so
they're doing it for the right reason. Or for their reason, right? It's going to be success for whatever their reason is.
Which is right. And so, you know, and I was, you know, other people are going to answer that question different ways, but that's a fair, and I love a fair answer, and I love that answer. So it makes total sense, and just shows that, you know, you're doing it for the right reasons, heart's in the right place of, you know, giving that individual attention and care.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I know, I mean, come on guys, like I was in investments and then a realtor, like these are not necessarily, these are not industries that people feel like really warm and fuzzy about per se, but ultimately like there's a lot more heart in it than I think some people might realize, and ultimately none of us are so short-sighted to just see the transaction. Like it's really about these people who we build long-term relationships with, and kind of we want to be there for the continuation of the story, not just like that one point in your life where maybe you buy your first home. And
that's a good like a teaser for when Steph comes on in a couple of weeks. Like Steph talks about like which I think like it puts a weird image in my head of like commission breath of like it doesn't create that like, and so we'll talk about that more in a couple of weeks, but for now, I think that's a great place to leave it and to wrap up. Where can people reach you? We'll put it in the notes in the comments below, but anybody out there, where can they reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of different ways. You can head over to my website, www.foodandshelterdenver.com. So A-N-D and foodandshelterdenver.com. So you can go on there, take a look around. Again, I have neighborhood recommendations. You can do some home browsing, and critique my website if you want. But if you want to get in touch with me directly, I'm a really good texter, or you can call. So best phone number to call is going to be 719-640-8277. And that's going to get through to me directly. It's my direct number, not my 303 number. So you guys can get through to me directly there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
so
great.
Thanks so much for hanging out on a Friday for a really long shoot the shit interview.
Yeah. Hey,
Here we
yeah. Hey, thanks for bringing the whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, great. Thank you, everyone, so much. We'll leave it there. And, again, any comments, anything, reach out to Emily. You can always put the comments below. And, again, appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll see you next week.